picture this. It's 2017, and India decides to flip a switch on its entire economy. It was a massive gamble called GST, promising to swap out a truly chaotic tax system for one single, simple idea. So, did it actually work? Today, we are pulling back the curtain on India's goods and services tax, what it is, how it works, and why it affects every single thing you buy. To really get why GST was such a game changer, you have to understand what came before. And honestly, it was a mess. People called it the tax maze for a reason. It was this crazy tangled web of different rules and different rates that changed every time you crossed a state line. It was a total nightmare for businesses and, frankly, for consumers too. And wow, when you see it laid out like this, the difference is just night and day. On one side, you had multiple taxes, a nasty tax on tax effect that we'll talk about, and just ridiculously complicated paperwork. And on the other, GST promised the exact opposite. One tax, no more tax on tax, and a much simpler digital process. The change was huge. So what did that old maze actually feel like? Well, just imagine you're trying to run a business. You'd be juggling value-added tax, service tax, central excise duty. The list just went on and on. But the worst part, these taxes were stacked on top of each other. So you'd pay a tax, and then you'd pay another tax on the price that already included the first tax. It just drove up prices for no good reason. But out of all that chaos came this beautifully simple idea. What if we could just get rid of all of that and have one single tax system for the entire country? That was the big idea behind GST. One nation, one tax. The goal was to turn India from a collection of separate markets into one unified common market. So what is GST officially? Well, the textbook definition is a comprehensive, destination-based, indirect tax. Okay, that's a mouthful, so let's break it down real quick. Comprehensive means it replaces almost all those other taxes we mentioned. Indirect means businesses collect it from you. And destination-based, well, that's a really cool idea we're about to get into. At its absolute core, the mission was simple. One nation, one tax. By having the same tax laws and rates everywhere, GST essentially tore down these invisible economic walls between states. All of a sudden, doing business anywhere in India became so much easier. Okay, now this idea of a destination-based tax is really clever. Here's how it works. Let's say a factory in Punjab makes a phone and sells it to you in Delhi. Under GST, the tax revenue from that sale goes to Delhi, the place where you, the consumer, actually are. This makes sure tax money is shared fairly among states, based on where people are actually buying stuff. It's also really important to get that GST is an indirect tax. Think about your income tax. You pay that directly to the government, right? Well, GST is different. The shop you buy from collects the tax from you at the counter, and then that business pays it to the government. They're basically the tax collector in the transaction. All right, so we've covered the what and the why. Now let's get into the how. How on earth does a single tax system actually work in a country as big and diverse as India, where you have both a central government and state governments that both need their share of tax revenue? The answer is this really smart dual model. If you buy and sell something within the same state, the GST you pay gets split right down the middle. Half goes to the central government, that's CGST, and half goes to the state government, or SGST. And if the sale happens between two states, they just use one tax, IGST, to keep it simple. It's a system designed to make sure everyone gets their piece of the pie. And all of this kicked into reality on a date that is now historic in India, July 1st, 2017. I mean, this wasn't just some minor policy change. This was the result of more than a decade of work and debate, and it stands as one of the biggest economic reforms in India's modern history. So, this massive new system is in place. But the big question is, who actually wins? Who benefits from all this change? Let's break down exactly how GST was designed to help the government, businesses, and maybe most importantly, you. For the government, the upsides are pretty clear. A single digital system is just way easier to manage. And because every transaction leaves a digital footprint, it becomes much harder for people to evade taxes. That means more transparency and, of course, more money collected to fund public services like roads and schools. For businesses, the relief was almost immediate. Instead of drowning in paperwork for a dozen different taxes, they now had one streamlined online system. They could also claim back the GST they paid on their raw materials. It's called an input tax credit, which directly lowered their costs. And just like that, selling to a customer in another state
became a breeze.
So, what's in it for you, the consumer? Well, the biggest thing is transparency. Remember that whole tax on tax problem? GST got rid of it. So the price you see is a lot closer to the price you pay. You actually know how much tax is being charged. Plus, with the same rates across the country, you see fewer weird price differences from one state to another. But here's the thing. The story of GST isn't just about taxes. It was also a massive engine for technology, basically forcing a huge part of the Indian economy to go digital, fast. And this quote really says it all. GST was never meant for old-school paper ledgers. From the very beginning, it was designed to be digital first. It perfectly lined up with the country's bigger goal of becoming a digitally empowered society. And this is what that actually looks like. Everything, and I mean everything, from registering your company to filing returns, paying what you owe, and even getting refunds, it all happens online. This digital backbone is what makes the whole system work. It's faster, it's more efficient, and it's a powerful tool against corruption. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that GST wasn't just one revolution, it was two. It was an economic revolution that finally created a true single market across India. And it was a digital revolution that modernized how millions of people do business and pushed the entire economy into the future. And that leaves us with a really exciting question to think about. We've just seen how a system as huge and complicated as taxes can be completely reinvented with technology. It really makes you wonder, what's the next big piece of our economy that's about to be transformed? What's next for India's digital revolution?